Hey YouTube land, Tycondrius here, getting back into doing more action figure reviews, and today we're having a look at the second figure of my Dark Judgment, and this is Judge Mortis. Now, if you watched my previous review for Judge Death, this guy reuses a lot of similar parts, but there is some differences as well, so we'll get into that in a second. Aside from Judge Death, the other Dark Judges that I picked up, Fear, Fire, Mortis, were all picked up locally. Judge Death was the only one I ordered on Big Bad Toy Store. I actually had him pre-ordered and he shipped before the other Dark Judges. So when one of the local comic book stores got these guys in, I opted to go for local rather than, going shipping from the States to get to me. But we'll get into this figure straight off. So I haven't taken the piece on the back of the box out, which is the base. I have a base already out from which figure is it, from Judge Death, and I do have a couple of other bases that I can show, but it comes on a pretty plain box. Unfortunately I ripped mine open when I was opening these guys. These are done by Hiya toys, so these are part of their exquisite mini collection. These are done in 1/18 scale. So the box is the usual kind of clamshell blister box style. You do have a hanger for a peg if you want to hang it, keep it in box and hang it from peg. I know some collectors out there are kind of more in-box collectors, but I'm an opener, so I like to open my figures. Now, one thing I will note, he does come with 2 additional hands. And in the course of opening all the Dark Judges, because their hands are very similar, right here they all are, I'm not sure which ones are his and which ones are Judge Fear's, because Judge Fear, the only guy that doesn't, I'm not even sure if he has extra hands, I'll have to double check. Judge Fire hands are translucent, so it's easy to tell which ones they are. And when Judge Death came, I kept his hands separate to the others, but in the course of opening them all up, I mixed up Fear's and Mortis's hands. Now, 2 of these look identical, so I'm pretty sure one of these is Fear's and one of these is Mortis's. I have a feeling this pointing one is Mortis's, and the kind of open one, palm, is actually Fear's. And if I match the skin tones of the extra hands up, these 2 seem to go together, whereas the other 2 seem to be similar as well. So the one thing that is interesting is his hand that comes with is pretty open anyway. So there's not much difference between the hand that he comes with as a default compared to the one that you can swap out with. His right hand, on the other hand, is similar to his open palm, where he has a kind of pointing finger similar to the one that came with Judge Death. In fact, if I bring in Judge Death's version, you can see I think it's the exact same hand. Bear with me a moment. I believe it is pretty much, the exact same hand, except Death's one has a bit more wash on it. The wash varies on these guys, so depending on which figure you have, it's kind of hard to tell which accessory is for who. So we'll just pop them aside for a second. We'll bring in the base. So the base is exactly the same as the one that came with the Judge Death figure. It has the bone on it. Has this skeleton kind of, I think this is supposed to be either their home planet or their home dimension, or it's supposed to be the what's it called, the wasteland, when the judges go on the long walk. It could be it's supposed to be Cursed Earth. I think it could be supposed to be the Cursed Earth wasteland. But they just come with these I connectors, or H connectors, whichever way you want to pronounce them. They fit on either side. There's holes on all 4 sides of the base. Judge Death, Judge Dredd, Dark Judges under license. And here's the one that came with the 2-pack of Dredd and Death. What's interesting is the base is actually slightly different. You have this one that is actually a slightly different base to the others, so you can actually connect these all together should you wish. And if you have, I'm going to pop this off again, depending which way it comes out of the thing. So if you have other bases from the Hiya Toys lines, this is the one from one of the Predators. You can actually connect those to them So you can have optional different braces. I'm pretty sure this is one of the ones that came with the... Pretty much all the Predator figures have these. I don't think there's any that didn't have those, except for the dogs. Predator hounds didn't come with bases, but the standard Predators do come with the base. So for a height, we're just going to bring in the old tape measure. You see he stands just around the 4-inch mark, similar to that of Judge Dredd. And articulation is pretty much the same as Judge Dredd's. So he does have the dual jointed knee. He has a rocker ankle and a hinge. So you can actually rotate his foot side to side. There's 2 peg holes on the bottom of the feet. Single jointed hinge for the shoulder. Now, the pterodactyl skeleton thing on this one, on my one, did pop off. But it is supposed to be glued to the shoulder, which is good to see, because you can see where it differs from that other Judge Dredd, the original first one, where it's pegged in here, so completely limited this shoulder articulation. So you can see how good the shoulder articulation is. You can get a 360 turn without it on. You probably won't get a 360 turn with it on, but it will hinder a small bit of articulation. Head is on a ball joint, and unlike Judge Dredd, this guy actually has an articulating jaw, because he has a horse skull. I think it's a horse skull. I'm pretty sure it's a horse skull for his head, instead of a normal Judge's helmet. He has a lot of bone motif going on. So his badge says Mortis, and it's a skull. It's a horse skull or a ram skull, or whatever the skull is. It's the same skull design as his actual head. He has a kind of skeletal version of the pterodactyl thing that Judge Dredd has, and he has a more kind of, because Judge Dredd has bones on his shoulder pad, it's kind of a more of a rib cage looking shoulder pad than Judge Dredd's. And he actually has a little horsey tail as well. And one of the cool things about this guy is, when I first saw him, I thought he shares a lot of pieces with Judge Dredd, but he doesn't. He has some unique parts. So his legs are actually unique from the waist down to his lower legs. Now, I think the lower legs are the same as Dredd's, and the lower arms. In fact, I think the arms are shared between the two. These shoulder pads on Dredd are actually a separate piece, so you don't actually have to have them on him. Mortis does not have those shoulder pads. I'm not sure if that's comic accurate, because I thought Mortis had his own version of the shoulder pads. I could be wrong, but if you look in here to the waist, you can see his ribs are exposed, and similar on his uniform, it's been torn open, so you can see you can't see the exposed bone, but it is kind of indicated that you can see through his uniform kind of thing. It's like been ripped and torn in several places, whereas Dredd's uniform is more of a singular piece. His arms do have the rotation. They're on like a peg, so when you pop off the hand, you can pop on the other one onto the ball peg, and you just have the waist articulation as well. He actually has another rip on his uniform on this side as well, which is kind of cool. So I'm not sure if you can see that on screen, but you can see it's just there. His belt is similar in design to Dredd's as well, except instead of where Dredd has a kind of bat, kind of creature head sculpt thing, Mortis is just a normal skull, but they still have the wings on either side, and the belt pouches go all the way around. The green on Mortis is a lot more vibrant than the one on Dredd. Dredd's has more of a wash and is muted, but they still look pretty good together. So if I just stand them up, I know they're quite spindly figures, so standing them up without a base is a bit tricky. You can do it, it's just you have to get that proper spot for him. So you can see how big Mortis's head is compared to Dredd's, because it's like a ram's, or I keep saying ram skull, but I think it's like it's either a cow skull or a horse skull. I'm not too sure which. It's either or. I could be wrong, but it is an animal skull of some kind. And just bring in a Dredd figure. Now, I don't have the colorized version of Dredd. I do have the unpainted version of Dredd. This was the first version they did, which was a San Diego exclusive set. Came with this version of Death, which hopefully won't knock everyone over. There wasn't any peg hole on the bottom of this, so hope he doesn't fall forwards, which he is wanting to. So you can get him to stand a little bit back. There's that version of Death. That was the first version of Death that they released, where the shoulder pads, similar to Dredd, its shoulder pads are attached to the chest section of the figure as opposed to onto the actual shoulder. So for other figure lines, we'll bring in a few different things. We have a Spin Masters Joker. If you can get the little fecker to stand. We have one of the Boss Fight Studios Phantoms, because I did a review for them recently. We have the Ellie Sattler from Dominion. Yeah, from Dominion. What else do we have close by that we can bring in? Actually, I have an old figure, which is the Yondu from one of the, I think it was the Marvel Universe 3 3/4 inch scale figure lines. This is the one that came packed with a Star-Lord figure. We have a 25th anniversary G.I. Joe figure. And from another Hiya Toys line, we have one of the Predators. In fact, if I just move this, this is Jungle Hunter, Unmasked Jungle Hunter Predator. And from something from Galaxy Far Far Away, we have that blue alien dude from The Mandalorian Season 1. So, there you go, guys. There's a quick video review for Judge Mortis. He's a pretty cool figure. If you're a fan of the franchise, then you will enjoy these figures. If not, they're not something you could easily pass on them if you're not a big fan of the Judge Dredd comic, or if you know anything about Judge Dredd. But as someone who grew up with Judge Dredd, these are actually awesome figures. I do know that Mezco did larger scale figures, if that's your thing, but I've always been a fan of the 3 3/4 inch 1/18 scale figures, so I was excited for these to come out. And they haven't disappointed so far. I haven't had any real QC issues. The only thing I would say is they're not, like, even on the boxes, these are for 15+. They're not really intended for younger kids, because they can be fragile in places, and for swapping out hands and stuff like that, I would always recommend just to heat them up a bit before swapping out, so you don't damage the pegs. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this quick video review for Judge Mortis. I will get around to doing Fear and Fire, and then when I get them all done, I'll bring in the colorized version of Dredd just to go with them. And I also have the Judge Giant figure as well, so I'll bring him in as well, so you can see a size comparison between all of those. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Cheers, guys.